If you're thinking about a career in public safety and you can't decide between police, fire, or EMS, this is the video for you. Today I'm answering a question of one of the viewers who left a comment a while back asking this particular question. They're at a crossroads in their life, a metaphorical fork in the road, if you will. And today I'm going to give you my perspective after having done police, fire, and EMS for coming up on 32 years. And just to get it out of the way, if you ask any firefighter, what should you do? Do I become a cop or I become a firefighter? The firefighter's gonna tell you, become a firefighter, no brainer. Now, if you go and ask a cop that's got any time on, and you ask them the same question, I'm looking into public safety and I'm at a crossroads, which should I pick? Should I be a cop or a firefighter? I'll tell you what, the cop's gonna tell you, become a firefighter. I just wanted to get that out of the way now and stick around. Here we go. All right, now that I got my cheaters on, I'm gonna read you the whole comment, the whole question, so that I don't goof it up and paraphrase, because I think that this person has a good head on their shoulders and they're trying to make a good decision here. All right, so they wrote, I love watching your videos and just subscribed. I really like that you have experience in both firefighting, EMS, and law enforcement. I'm at a time in my life right now where I'm trying to decide what to do. Ride-alongs are hard to come by where I live, but I've been fortunate enough to have done 4 fire EMS rides and 1 police ride. I love them both. I think I'll have FOMO for whichever one I don't do. I'm going through a police department application process right now and have also applied for an internship at a fire department. I've applied for a few fire departments over the last 6 months and been through the full hiring process for one, not being successful yet, but only 1 police department so far. I also have enrolled in an AEMT class that starts soon. Awesome. The problem is all 3 of those things conflict with each other. My AEMT class is already guaranteed. In fact, I already paid and can't get a refund, so I'm going to attend as much as possible, even if I can't certify. I'm waiting to see what happens with the internship and PD, but if I get the chance to pick between 2 or all 3 options, I don't know what I'll do. Since I think I love doing both police work and firefighting, the question I keep asking myself is, where would I be the greatest benefit? That's deep. I feel like I could become great at both with good training and consistently keeping myself up to par in my spare time. Oh, if only more people did that. I will say I do feel PDs may need me more than, I will say I do feel that police departments may need me more than fire departments just because there's a shortage of police officers while fire departments literally have hundreds of other applicants lined out their door. I do, however, feel like fire departments have a more directly good impact since they work closely with those they're helping, and police departments generally work more with those they're helping people from. Though if I do law enforcement, I want to do all I can to also help those I may have to arrest. I would hope to be a light to a few of them, the ones willing to see it at least. My goal would be for them to know by the time that we pull into the jail that someone out there cares about them and believes that they can change for the better if they're willing to put forth the effort. My greatest fear in choosing would be accidentally choosing an option in which I never reach my full potential to do good in my vocation. I have considered doing police work full time and living somewhere, a place not that far from me, that has a volunteer fire department so I can volunteer while off duty. What would be your advice for my situation? All right, so obviously a lot to unpack here. It's a very long question, but I feel like this person has a good head on their shoulders and they're gonna do well whatever profession they choose to do. But I wanna add my perspective of all 3 jobs. And when I say 3 jobs, I'm really including, because I've obviously worked in a fire rescue capacity for the last almost 22 years. So that's all I know when it comes to the EMS side, is within the construct of fire rescue operation. And police, obviously I did almost 11 years with police, and the majority of that was in SWAT, and I stayed as a reserve when I went to fire. So that is the context from where I'm giving you my perspective for the viewer that has not seen me before or doesn't follow me. All right. So I have notes here that I'm going to refer to that I wrote for the viewer. And then afterwards, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each job, what it takes going in like through the academy on each. And hopefully it'll give you more of an insight if you're at this fork in the road in your life, right? Like I was at one point when I was young. So, all right. So you've been proactive. You've gone out there. You've done rides on both sides to see what each job is like, right? And that's awesome. You're out there. I did that too when I was trying to get hired with PD. I did a bunch of rides with police on the different shifts, on the afternoon shift, on the midnight shift. I didn't really do days because I thought it was boring. But anyways, you've done that. And now you're going through an application process with the police department right now and have applied for an internship with fire. Awesome. You're a go-getter. All right. So you paid for this AMT class and you can't get a refund. So like sometimes in life, I feel like there's like signs and like the universe or whatever I don't know what you believe in, but like when I was at my crossroads, I looked up and I asked God, I was like, what should I be doing? What do I need to do? And at some point, if you know, like I said, I don't know what you believe in, but the universe will usually give you those answers if you ask and open up your mind, for that type of intuition, right? So you've paid for this class, you can't get a refund. It's probably a good thing, right? Because it's going to force you to take the class. Now, you mentioned in there, if I don't get the cert, I don't understand why you wouldn't get the cert. You've got the time in, you've paid for it, you can't get a refund, I think it's a good thing that you can't. It's going to force you to do the class, right? And if you've done the class, you might as well get the certification, sit for the test, have that certification. And even if you become a cop, that's going to help you with coming up on a scene and treating people. From where I was in the 90s, in the early 90s when I started in police, to now, the police have evolved. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many fold they've evolved. I mean, back then we dreaded going to CPR every 2 years and having to research CPR. I dreaded that. And I mean, if you told me back then that I was going to end up being a firefighter on a helicopter running trauma calls and working with broken people all the time, I would have laughed in your face. So, life takes you in different paths, and you just got to be open to these nudges. So you're in the class, you can't get out of it. Finish the class and get that cert, right? I think when you're done with the AMT class, definitely get the cert. Already hit that, beat that horse, right? And that can only help you, right? And then, okay, so you mentioned that there's a shortage of of people applying to police, and that fire departments have people out the door trying to get in. I don't know that should be a decision maker for you. How many people are not becoming cops versus how many people are becoming firefighters? It's what you want and what you're gonna do for the next 30, like I'm going on 32 years. I'm gonna leave when I have 38. So it's a long time. I did make the switch in the middle. Well, not really in the middle, but like at 11 years almost. So I did switch, and that doesn't mean you can't switch later. You can always do that depending the possibilities that you have where you work, right? So I don't think that the amount of people not becoming cops should sway you in either direction, right? I think a lot has changed from 2020 till now in law enforcement, and they're going through a really hard time right now. And obviously that's the reason why. That's one of the reasons, I'm sure, that why it's a lack of people showing interest in going into law enforcement. But I don't think that should be something that sways you, right? So I don't know how old you are right now. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're young, but you got a great head on your shoulders by the way that you wrote and the questions you were asking and your perspective on things and how you're trying to position your life, right? So I just think that any way you go, you're going to do great because you sound like you just want to help people and do good, right? And you want to keep yourself better after you're done. Okay, so now I've been in fire now twice as long as I was in police. Yes, I stayed as a reserve, and like I said, perspective-wise, my police career has pretty much always been, for the most part, tactical. I've been in the SWAT team since 1998, in and out. When I left the fire, came back as a medic, go back on detachments. So that's my time in the field, working uniform, going to domestics and robberies, and it was, a few years of that, but I knew what I wanted to do since I was a little kid. That was something that drew my attention, right? So I don't feel like when I was in uniform, because our in SWAT versus being a uniform patrol officer is very different engagement that you have, contact that you have with the community and with the citizens, right? When you show up on uniform patrol, you might go to a house where there's somebody in cardiac arrest and you start CPR, or somebody's injured and you can help. But for the most part, you're going on burglaries, robberies, car broken into, might stop at DUI, domestic violence, and they're gonna be like the things you go on the most. So answering your question to you want to help and where you do the most good. So I feel like I've had more of an impact in fire rescue than I did so we're just comparing apples to apples, right? Uniform patrol officer to being a firefighter, paramedic in the field, on a fire truck, on an ambulance, if you're in fire rescue. I feel like you have more at-bats with helping people with all kinds of traumas, right? So medical calls, extrications, fires, pulling people off the side of a building, cat out of the tree, I've done it. Cat out of the engine of a car, I've done that one too. Put your bunker gear on because they're scared. Anyway, so I feel like in my 22 years here, and some will argue, yeah, but it's double the time. But in my police career, it's always been tactical, right? So going back to you, it's not about me, it's about you. And I think that wherever you go, man, you're gonna be awesome, because to take the time to write this and everything that you've done and how your mind is tracking right now, you're going to do well wherever you go. I think from my experience, what I feel in the time, like I said, that I've been here, I think I've had more of an impact in fire, being a fire medic, than in the time that I was in the field before going to SWAT in police. But I'll tell you, a lot of the guys, when I was leaving police and going to fire, everybody thought I was crazy because they were like, well, I'd rather get shot at than be burned or blah, blah, or just starting over again as a rookie. And now I run into a lot of these guys and they tell me, man, I should have left with you 22 years ago when you did. You were the smart one. So, and there's a lot of guys that still, they wouldn't want to do this. They wouldn't want to see broken bodies all the time, and they don't do good with heights. They don't do good on ladders. They're claustrophobic. They can't be blacked out in smoke or on a drill or stuck somewhere in a maze and working out of that. So the jobs are very different, and I'm gonna break those down now. An overview of the jobs in case you are really like coming from the outside and you have no idea, because I really didn't know what I was getting into coming from police to fire. I knew from fire what I saw on backdraft and what I saw them pulling up on calls when I was a cop. And that was it. I didn't really research it too much. It was after 9/11, and one of the guys that I worked with in SWAT had gone over to fire, and he was like, man, this is great. The camaraderie and the schedule and the life is just awesome. And at that point I applied, and it just, like I said in the past, things are just, I don't know if serendipitous is the word, but it just kind of, everything just was perfect, right? And then I just got hired, flew right into it. And I can't say I never looked back, because I did, because it took one of our guys in SWAT getting shot in the face for us to get the program, SWAT medic program going, and I ended up going back. But I'm gonna break this down. I know it's been long-winded, but if you're still here, thank you. All right, I'm gonna pull up my notes here, and then so I'm gonna expand the conversation because I ran a poll on my YouTube community here, and the number I asked, if you're on the fence, public safety wise, which are you looking into? Firefighting, police, paramedic, and then undecided. I should have included fire rescue in there because the whole paramedic one was like number 2, so it was firefighter, and I'll put the poll results up here. It was firefighting, paramedic, police, and undecided, right? So when you say paramedic, I'm assuming that you're talking EMS only, so we'll address that after the fact. All right, so I have another video on this, which is harder, police or fire, and I'll put it up here somewhere, or I'll make it the end card video. But going into police work, depending on the academy that you go to, some academies, so back in 93 when I got hired, and I started the academy in 94. The academy was a college. We didn't have, as a department, we didn't have our own standalone academy at the time. And we went for 6 months to that academy. Then we went out for a 3-week writing assignment at a district where we ran, 1 week was days, 1 week was afternoons, and 1 week was midnights with an FTO. And then we went back to our training facility and we did our last 3 months or 2.5 months there of basically SOP. So basically you learned the state requirement and passed the state exam, then did the ride times, and then you went and did the last 2.5 months of SOPs of how the department does things. And then you went out to the field and you did FTO. And while you're in the academy, you learn how to shoot, and you learn how to, back then it was a ridiculous defensive tactics curriculum where everything was pretty much staged. You put your hand here and I'm going to turn here and you're going to fall on the floor. And right, that never happens in real life, right? So you learn that when you hit the street and you're like, oh my God, well, that didn't work. So it's on you to continue to get training, whether it's firearms, defensive tactics, or the other courses that you can attend to stay at the top of your game, as you should in that field, right? So for firefighting, you're going to go, when I went to minimum standards, it was 2 months, if I recall correctly. And then we took the state exam. And then the ones in my class that were certified paramedic already, or EMT, they went to the field. And I came from police, I had no certs. We went to EMT school, right? So we were there for 3 months, whatever it was. And then we finished EMT, took the NREMT. And then once we had that, then we graduated completely, got our badge, and then went to a firehouse as a rookie and started there, right? So the thing with fire is you're always going to have drills, battalion, you're going to have unit level training drills, like you're on a suppression truck, you're going to pull hose, you're going to throw ladders, you're going to do something, and then you're going to have station level drills where if you have like a suppression and a box, you're going to have the box go in on search. And then the suppression is going to pull the hose line. We'll do that through a station, or if we go to the training facility. So you're going to have more at bats, I think, in fire at staying sharp and staying trained up with drills. And eventually you have, like, depending once a week or once a month, a battalion level drill where you have all the trucks and the units in that battalion and go and drill. You don't have this in police, at least not in my department, because we're so big. It's kind of hard. It's hard enough to get people to come to annual for annual recertification, firearms and defensive tactics. But to get them, so cops aren't, like, unless they're doing it on their own time and their own dime, they're not out there shooting and doing jiu-jitsu or other types of combatives on their own, unless they're putting themselves through it. They're not going to be sent by the department because it's a lot of money, and that's where the whole defunding police is ridiculous, because they need more money, because the better trained they are, the less force they have to use, right? So that's a whole other topic, whole other video. So like I said, contrasting the two, you graduate from police, you're pretty much on your own, you go out there, you're working, but those high liability things are going to be on you to maintain. And shooting once a year is not maintaining your shooting level, right? Or combatives. So in fire, it's kind of built into the job, right? You're gonna get those at bats, right? So there are, and then so like I said, EMS. I'm going to talk about EMS from my perspective because the EMS is built into my job, right? We're a fire rescue organization, right? We provide the bulk of our work is EMS. You know, whenever you see one of our trucks running down the street like sirens, most likely some type of ALS call or a call we're running on. But it's not like some places in the country is heavy fire, but then they're like a single service fire department, or they have single service EMS. So the only experience that I have with single service EMS is the stuff that I read on Reddit, and it's nuts, right? So it's people just complaining about burnout and the lack of pay and the people that they have to work with. So that's the only experience that I have with a standalone EMS service, right? I work in a fire EMS organization, and that's where I talk to you. That's where I'm coming from with this. If you look at the stats, law enforcement deaths in 2024, the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund reported 147 officers died in the line of duty in 2024, covering all levels from federal to tribal. This marks a 25% increase from the 118 that died in 2023. And then the Officer Down Memorial page listed at 167. So there's a discrepancy of 20 officers there. Contrast that with firefighters. According to the NFPA, there were 62 on-duty firefighter fatalities in 2024, and that was a significant 31% decrease from the 90 recorded in 2023. Okay, and if you look at EMS, there's a ton of data on EMS assaults and assaults on paramedics, and I mean we see that in my service, right? When we go out dealing with certain difficult patients and people that want to go hands on with you, right? So they all have their pros and cons, okay? And like I said, in police, you're gonna have the shift work. In fire, sleep deprivation is a real thing, man. And no matter how, I mean, even if you work at a slow station, which you should not when you're new, if you work at a slow station, your sleep is still interrupted because if you care, you're always gonna be waiting for that, is that call, when's that call coming, whatever, and then you don't really ever like relax and go to sleep like you would in your house, right? And then if you're at a busy station, even for us on the helicopter, if we get a call, if we get two calls, if we get one call that is like at 2:30 in the morning and it's a bloody mess, and by the time we pull the aircraft, open the hangar doors, pull the aircraft out, lunch, go, grab the patient, take them to the hospital, come back, empty out the aircraft and decon and hose everything down and refuel and go back to bed. It's been like 2.5, the whole night's gone. Like it was right smack in the middle of the night. So, and in other trucks that are out there that I still go out and work for extra duty pay on, you go out there and you have 3 after midnight. You get that 12, 3, and 4, 5 in the morning call. You're done. You're gonna come home and you're a mess. And I now look back, now that I'm a dad, and I look back at the guys that when I was young in fire, I was in my 30s, but they were like in their 20s and they were dads, and those guys were leaving busy trucks and going and being a dad, and I was single. So I mean, and now I look back, I'm like, man, hats off to those guys, because that's crazy. Don't come into the fire thing thinking, okay, I'm gonna come and chill on the recliner. In the fire service, the culture, as far as I know, and it's like that with every agency around where we're at, like rookies are not, you're not going to be sitting on the recliner or sleeping or just chilling. You're going to be learning, drilling, or doing stuff, answering phones, mopping, cleaning. They're going to find something, you're going to be exhausted. I remember when I was a rookie, and it was, at least I was at busy stations. So we were just, the most call I've had is 29 calls in one shift. And the most I've had after midnight has been 8 on a box. So, I mean, we never even saw the station that night. It was just back to back. So that's what you're getting into, right? So Both jobs have their inherent scheduling things that are very nuanced to each. I mean, police, if you start taking overtime, that's a whole other animal. And fire, also, if you have on your days off and you're working overtime, that's one less day you have to rest, right? Again, like I said, I'm not touching the EMS thing because my only experience of EMS is what I read on Reddit, and it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like something like if you get, so for the person out there that's looking to just do that, I would say get the EMS experience, get your EMT paramedic, and go nurse or something. Or if you want to find a service, I guess maybe you have aspirations of being a flight medic, like on working for a hospital-based helicopter or something like that. That's cool, but it doesn't sound like working at these ambulance companies is a treat, right? And that's all I ever read on Reddit. And if you want, you go down that Reddit rabbit hole and it might answer that better for you. So like I said, in police, you're going to be out in your car alone. And fire, obviously, if you're on a suppression, in our agency, you have 4 people in the truck. And if you're on a box, you have 3. So you're always going to be in that team environment. Most calls that are big calls that we go on, you're going to have multiple trucks there. So it's not like you're riding around in a patrol car by yourself, going to calls by yourself. So my personal take is I've found, like I said earlier on in the video, that I feel like I've had more of an impact on humanity, if you will, in fire rescue than I did in police. But it's not, either job isn't for everybody, right? There's the people that say, I would never want to go into something where I have to go hands-on with somebody and potentially take somebody's life or get into a fight with somebody or get hit. And that's cool. Then those, you have to know who you are, right? There's a famous quote, know thyself, right? And that's the strongest thing that you can have is knowing who you are, right? And then there's the people that like still in police that tell me like, oh, I couldn't do what you do, like seeing all that blood and seeing, hurt people. And like when I was in police, we'd show up on something that was bad and ETA on fire, and fire would show up and, they got it, so I never really like held a broken leg, or where, you're holding a limp noodle there's no bone in that tissue because it's shattered. There's people that can't handle that, right? So, and me just saying that right now, you might be like, oh, I don't know if, that doesn't sound like, but that's like, I lost count. I would have never even tried to keep count of how many times I've done CPR in the last 3 months. Like, I don't even know how many shootings we go. I mean, we go on at least one shooting a week on the helicopter. So if you're not good with that, that's another thing. Doesn't mean you can't grow into it, because I said it in another video, when I was in the police academy and we went the week that we had homicide instruction, that we had homicide come and show us all kinds of videos and try to scare us, and then we ended up going to the autopsy, to the medical examiner's office on the Friday, and I fainted when they cut that guy's head open. I fainted, and that was I woke up and there were 4 guys dragging me to a room and giving me a Coke and telling me to come back when I felt ready. And it was super embarrassing, but I went out there and 32 years later, I'm here. So I know this one went on longer than usual, but I really wanted to do it justice. And if you're new here, you like this type of video, hit that subscribe button. I try to put videos out once a week, but hey, I'm still out here doing this, so it gets hard, and I'm still learning this video editing thing. So till next time, remember, the time chooses you, and stay frosty. Peace.